Do you spend hours each week creating Instagram content, but you're still not getting the sales and the wins that you see everyone and their mom sharing to their feed? It's really rough, but there's usually just a few simple changes you need to make to get there, and I'm going to help you. You are closer than you think. You can find the exact gaps that you have in your Instagram strategy, the gaps that are holding you back from getting clients from your content with my free Find and Fix the Gaps in Your Instagram Strategy quiz. All you have to do is take 5 minutes to fill out the quiz and you'll get the exact roadmap you need to start getting sales from your Instagram content. Get your copy of the quiz at sociallyyours.biz/findandfixed. All spelled out, all one word, find and fixed, or check the link in the show notes. Welcome back to episode 50 of Mompreneur Mastery, Simple Instagram Strategies for Busy Moms. Today I'm super excited because I get to talk to Amber Willis. And we get to talk all about storytelling and content creation and how important it is for fostering that connection that you have to actually get sales from your content and how to do it, basically. So Amber Willis is a branding and marketing strategist who specializes in storytelling marketing. So she offers done-for-you writing services as well as DIY writing support through her online course, The Storytelling Advantage. And if you listen to the end, she has an awesome discount for Mompreneur Mastery listeners. She also runs her own blog where she shares about all things storytelling, marketing, parenting, her freelance experience, and how she's working towards building her biggest, bravest life. When she's not writing, she's either reheating her coffee, which I think we can all relate to, walking her dog, or dancing it out with her 2 kids. I'm super excited for you to hear this episode so you can use your own stories, things you already know in your content to foster that connection you need to get sales from your content. Welcome to the Mompreneur Mastery Podcast, where we share actionable Instagram strategies that fit into a busy mom schedule so that you can get more engagement, more leads, and more sales in less time. I'm Sydney O'Brien, an Instagram strategist who started my business with 3 kids under 5 and found a way to do it without sacrificing quality time with my family and only working 2 hours a day. I love helping other mom business owners find that seemingly impossible mom work-life balance instead of spending too much time creating content that isn't getting them the results they want. If you're an overwhelmed but very ambitious business owner and you want to strategize the heck out of your Instagram account so that you can save time and make more sales, you're in the right place. Amber, can you first tell us what your favorite thing about Instagram is?
Yeah, I think my favorite thing about Instagram, especially now as a female entrepreneur, is just the ability to connect with people. I think being a stay-at-home mom for lots of years and now working from home, it can feel really, really isolating. And so being able to have that opportunity to just connect with people, even if it's just over social media, I don't know, that's my favorite.
Same here, honestly. That has saved my sanity a bunch, being a stay-at-home mom. I've found people I've never met in real life, but I've met some great mom friends online. It's a really great community you can find.
Yeah,
sure.
I love it.
And then can you tell us a little bit of background about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Amber. I am the founder of A Big Brave Life, and I am a content writer, really is kind of at the core of what I do, but I specialize in storytelling marketing. And it is not something I've always done. My background is actually in English and education. I was a classroom teacher. I taught high school English for a couple of years. And then when I got pregnant with my first, we actually moved states. And so I did not go back to the classroom, which I didn't want to anyway. So it worked out fine. And as we moved and my husband got settled, it just made the most sense for me to stay at home. And so I was able to do that really for 10 years. During that time, I had my second child. And that is where this part of my story really starts. My youngest was diagnosed with leukemia right around the same time the pandemic was starting. And so we kind of locked down in March, and then the very beginning of April, we got her diagnosis. And she underwent treatment for 2.5 years. She's now cancer-free. And during that time, I mean, we were just forced, everyone was forced to shift because of COVID, but especially with her risk, we just had to really think about like where are we spending our time and our energy and who are we connecting with and like who are we getting access to. So we kind of spent those years like building this new version of our world and of our life. And then as she got to the end of her treatment and then was starting kindergarten, um, for the first time in a decade, I wasn't going to have babies home with me. And I knew I wanted to go back to the paid workforce in some way. But I also knew that I really did not want to throw away like all of that growth and all of that, the shifting and changing that we had gone through. And so I kind of set out on this journey to like, how do I honor that and find some sort of meaningful work to do? And on it, that's how my business was born. I have a passion for writing. I have a passion for connecting with other women and helping them kind of understand how their stories and lived experiences can help push them if they allow them to take up space, to kind of use our voices and rally around each other in a way that helps us all to grow and to just be better. So, um, as my daughter was going through her treatment, we always called her our big brave girl because it was like this, like her bravery had like a presence to it. I can't even explain it. It was so beautiful and so profound. And that's kind of at the heart of what I want to do, to be able to use this business to help boost my life, to boost my family, and kind of step into whatever's coming next. And then to help other female entrepreneurs do that through their content and their messaging and their strategies and stuff like that. So, that is a long roundabout way of how I got here, but that's really kind of at the heart of what I do.
That's amazing. I'm so glad to hear your daughter is doing better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's thriving.
Good. That's great. And I love that. I feel like storytelling is like perfect for social media because like I feel like businesses a lot of the time forget like it's not really made for business. It was made for people to connect. You have to have that if you want to succeed. So I'm really excited to learn more about sharing stories online, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I also think that with like the big AI tools being used a lot more in online marketing, we see like people are really leaning into that, which I totally get because it makes life easier and like we're busy and a lot of the times, especially if you're like a solopreneur, like social media can kind of get moved to the end of your to-do list. But it definitely takes away of like the human aspect of it, even when you think you're good, you can kind of always tell. So,
Uh-huh.
and it gets a little repetitive because everyone's doing it. So everyone's posts sound the same and none of it is really personal. So honing in on your own personal messaging, like your own story and using that, I feel like is really key right now to stand
Yeah,
out more.
I completely agree. And honestly, that obviously my personal experience kind of drew me here, but the more that I've dug into branding and marketing and helping female entrepreneurs like find their footing, like that's the secret sauce every time is like the only thing that's going to make you stand out every single time is your story because it is 100% unique to you and your experiences and the way that you talk about them and the way that you relate to others through them. Like nobody can duplicate that. So we can use AI all day long. And I do. I mean, it's perfect for brainstorming and outlining and getting some of those ideas down. But at the end of the day, like, especially on Instagram, like we want human connection. Like I'm sure the more people you ask your favorite thing about Instagram, like so many people are going to say connection because especially as moms, like that's why we're there.
Yeah.
And so just being able to recognize like your story is your uniqueness and being able to channel that and yes, use AI as a tool, but to rely on that, like that's what's going to allow you to show up as yourself, to connect with people, to expand your networks, and really all the things that we're trying to do as business owners.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely wish AI was seen more as like a tool and not a replacement for sure. Um,
100%.
yeah, because the thing that I talk about a lot in my work is helping people make sales on Instagram through connection. Like having that connection with your audience is like the easiest way to do it, both to get more sales and like to do it without feeling icky. And
Yep.
that a lot of that comes from sharing like more about your personal brand, like your story and all of that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really powerful stuff.
it is. And I heard somebody said once, and I have no idea who to attribute the quote to, and no amount of internet digging has turned it up yet. But they say storytelling is the quickest form of connection,
Mhm.
right? And so when you are able to share about your own lived experiences, even when they're not the same as someone else, like imagination and empathy goes a long way. And then all of a sudden you're crossing that bridge, you're building that likability, that trust that as entrepreneurs we know is so valuable. And really like storytelling's the easiest way to do that. And it can be something as simple as telling a story about how you reheated your coffee 5 times this morning because, your kid's coming in and all the things. Or it could be sharing, like I just did my story about how I came into my business. Like it can look so many different ways, but I think that's the beauty of it. And also the freedom of it when you're trying to figure out like, how do I show up here every day? I know I have to be consistent. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Because like you said, it's so easy for that to just get put on the back burner and kind of drop down the to-do list because like it's just one more thing to do, right? And so I think when we can see it with fresh eyes and understand like our life is a wealth of content, like, we just have to be willing to look at it, from that lens and using that storytelling. I mean, it's a game changer.
Mhm. It is, and I like that you mentioned it could be something as simple as, like, having to reheat your coffee a couple of times because it like, while I do think there is value in sharing, like, the big, vulnerable, like, deeper stories, because so much of that I know for you, it's, like, why you started your business, and that is really important, but it doesn't have to be when it comes to, like, content creation, it doesn't have to be, like, every post,
Mhm.
especially if someone is more hesitant to share that stuff online, which I completely
Mhm.
understand. But so much of like the little day-to-day things that you experience are very relatable because so many of us, our target audience is like another version of us, basically.
Yes.
So it's just so relatable and definitely worth sharing.
Yeah, the number of clients that I've worked with who are like, "But I don't have a story to tell," right? Like, "I'm boring, all I do every day is change diapers and chase kids and do pickups," and it's like, well, that's your story, right? Like,
Yep.
those are the moments that people are gonna, like, nod along and be like, "Yes, I see you."
Yep.
And those are the moments, they're gonna get to know you and they're gonna like you. They're gonna feel like you're their friend, and then that, honestly, at the end of the day, is what's going to translate into them trusting you enough to give you their money or to support your business in whatever way that looks like in whatever service you provide.
Yeah, and even outside of sales on social media specifically, like getting that like I mean those are the things that get the most engagement too,
Yes.
which helps with your content performance and
Mhm.
like getting more reach and more followers and all of that. So very beneficial in lots of ways.
Yeah.
Um Now if someone came up to you and was like, I don't know where to even start with sharing my story or sharing like any story, what advice would you give them?
So usually I just start with asking the question, what brought you to your business? Not what do you do, because that, in my opinion, is different. But like what allows you to get up every day and do what it is that you're doing? And all of a sudden, typically there's a shift then as we start to think about like, how did I get here? And you start to read like our life is just made up of stories, right? The stories of the things that we're experiencing, the way that we interact with other people, the stories we tell ourselves in our own head. And just being able to identify, like, oh, there is a story there. Even if it's simple, even if it's straightforward, like, great. But there is something there. And I think once you start to make that connection, it gets a lot easier. The other piece that then I think is so important to figure out is like, who are you telling this story to? Right? Because if if you're just like coming up with a story, it's like, well, I could tell any sort of story. Like, I don't, that's overwhelming. There's too many options. But when I know the person that I am telling the story to is another female entrepreneur who is, early in her business, who is struggling to balance life and kids and all the things, when I can identify her, all of a sudden it's like, I know what she needs to hear from me because I've been there. And then I can start to see it through that lens. And so then it's this combination. I call it the magic middle when I talk to my clients, this overlapping space of who I am and then what I do and what I offer. And being able to connect the two and share from that space is just really, really powerful. And so I think I would tell them, one, pause and think about what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it, what brought you here. And then also, who are you talking to and what do they need to hear from you? So many of us as service providers, I feel like our ideal client or that person that we're creating content for is a past version of ourselves, right? Like it's somebody that we've been there, we've been in their shoes, we want to provide some sort of solution. And so when you think about her, like, what is it that she needs? Because because you've been there. And so then you can kind of tell that story of how you got from where she is to where you are now. And I think also that takes a little bit of pressure off because you're not trying to curate something, right? Like you're just simply sharing your experience. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be formatted. It doesn't have to be like curated for Instagram, right? Like I think sometimes we need to take that pressure off to have the perfect aesthetic and like all of that comes into play, sure. But being able to allow yourself to just share, I think is really important to you. And recognizing that like as women, as female entrepreneurs, the more we allow ourselves to do that, the more freedom we give to everybody else to do the same. And it gets a little bit easier to show up.
Yeah, I can definitely see that and completely agree. And I think, yeah, I hear a lot from people that they are trying to like perfect their posts for Instagram, like they're afraid to share because it's not quite perfect or anything. But there is a lot of like authenticity and just putting it out there that really cannot be undervalued. Like I think it's really helpful to just do it. Like just get it done. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yep, done, not perfect.
Yes, exactly. I feel like a lot more connection happens that way when you're not following a specific format. You're just writing, like creating as yourself.
Yeah, I think so. And I think what I love about kind of that story-centered marketing or story-centered content is that it does create space for you to show up however you need to show up on any given day, right? Like I can tell the story of how my morning went. And some days that's great. And I am killing it. And am momming and doing the business stuff. And it's like smooth sailing. There are other mornings where I'm like, oh my gosh, nothing went as planned. My kids are on their screens in the background and my dog's barking to go outside. And I don't know I don't know how to show up, but here we are. And I know that not everybody is comfortable with that messiness and kind of allowing for that. But I do think when your focus is connection and you're using story to do that, it gives you that freedom to be able to do that if you want. And so you can opt into that and allow yourself kind of that freedom and that space to be your whole self. So there's a lot less shape shifting, I feel like, where it's like, well, this is my Instagram persona and this is my business owner. And you're kind of trying to figure out like which voice to use for which interaction. And it can be really overwhelming. So I think if you are looking for that ease or that ability to just like own who you are and what you're doing and like enter into it with full confidence, like this can be that for you if you want it to be.
Yeah, for sure. And I completely get like the hesitation to do it. But I think when you really consider that like your target audience is most of the time a past version of you, no one's going to judge you or anything. They're going to be like, yeah, no, I've been there. Or like, that was me like 2 days ago. Or that's probably going to be my life tomorrow.
Yep.
So yeah, I love that. What do you think the biggest mistake is people make when starting to share stories or share storytelling posts?
Mm. I think trying to get them perfect is honestly probably like what stands in the way, because when we go through so much overthinking and so much editing and just this quest for perfection, we lose our own voice, like you kind of edit yourself out of it. And I think the beauty of this story-centered approach and allowing yourself to be a part of it is that it sounds like you. It feels like you. Like even in the words that you use or the way that you've edited it, it's not going to be perfect. And that's okay because it's yours. And I think, we just have to accept that like we're each going to have our own style and our own presence and our own persona. And it's not always going to be that perfectly curated feed. And that's okay, because that's kind of the goal, right? Like, we want it to be different because we want somebody to come to our page and feel like, oh, I like get a grip for who she is. And I feel like I could get to know her. I want to sit down and have a cup of coffee with her. So I think overthinking and over editing ourselves out of our story. And then I also think putting pressure on yourself to tell the perfect story all the time. And so trying to, if you're looking at whether it's your founder story or even just a random story in a post that you're just trying to connect with somebody and you're creating that content, like, we can get so hyper focused on the met and wanting it to perform well that we stop thinking about like why we're creating it. And obviously the metrics are important. You know that. And also sometimes we just have to create because it's what feels good. And the only way we're not going to burn out and we're not going to, kind of like stay on that hamster wheel and just create is to allow ourselves like some joy in the whole process and to be able to not only like put yourself into it, but to also just do it for the sake of doing it sometimes. And I think it's too easy to get caught up in that perfection game.
Yeah, I think also a thing about metrics is people get caught up in vanity metrics a lot when it doesn't matter a whole bunch. Like, you could get a whole bunch of likes or comments on a post, but if they're not like a post specifically about your business and the engagement isn't specifically from people in your target audience, it doesn't actually matter. Like, it doesn't actually help your business.
Yeah.
So when you focus on the things that are about you and your business, and those things get likes and comments, even if it's not as many, but if they're coming from your target audience, like, those are the metrics you want. That's
Yeah.
the important bit for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you have a workbook that people can download to help with their branding, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I have a freebie that will help you create a brand affirmation statement. And so it's a workbook that's going to ask you a couple of the questions about what brought you to your business and who you are creating content for, who you are trying to serve. But honestly, this is more for you as a business owner, because we're going to take that information, kind of get at the heart of why you do what you do, and we're going to create a statement around that. So on those hard days where you feel really overwhelmed, or you're kind of wondering like, how am I going to continue to juggle all of this? Or, your posts aren't performing or whatever it is, and you're just kind of feeling beat up. It's one of those kind of like shining light, North Star type of statements that you can come back to, kind of remind yourself why it is that you got into what you do. I have a lot of clients. We go through this process and then, they set it as a background on their phone, or they put it in their office so that as they get started on their workday, like, it's just something that they can kind of ground themselves back into their business and why they're doing what they're doing. So that is a freebie. You can get to it through my website or through my Instagram, and then it'll email it directly to you.
Perfect. And I'll put the link in the show notes. I love that idea. I was literally just thinking, oh man, I should really do that and like hang it up in my office somewhere so I can see it. It's so easy to get like caught up in like the negativity, especially when a lot of like social media is just showing constant highlights. So yeah, having like that brand affirmation sounds super, super helpful.
Yeah, it is. And it's so simple. And it's one of those things where I have yet to meet another female entrepreneur who had one like in writing. She's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I always have like these mantras or, whatever." But to actually have it and have it be something concrete, I think it goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. So definitely grab it. I'm going to share the link in the show notes. And then can you tell us a little bit about the storytelling advantage?
Yeah. So I do have a digital course. It is called the Storytelling Advantage. And it honestly does exactly kind of what we've talked through today. It helps specifically female entrepreneurs kind of identify, is there anything standing in your way of sharing your story in your online spaces specifically? We kind of get into that permission piece. Like, what if you allowed yourself to show up in those spaces and to own your story? we dig into your voice and how you need to show up and who you are creating content for. There's a lot about your ideal client and that avatar that we're trying to connect with. And then as part of my course, you actually are going to create copy for 6 different things. So you would get, we talked through mission statements and vision statement, social media bios, about page, a sales page, social media captions, and then email newsletters as well to kind of get into some of the, there are some templates available, but it's a lot more like, let's think through all the different pieces that we would need and how we can create things for them that look like us, sound like us, so that at the end of the day, you kind of carved out your own little space on the internet to represent your business and your brand. And so with that, we do monthly coaching calls. And then there's an online community piece as well to ask questions and stuff like that. So I am offering a discount to your audience. I think you have the code that you can put in there, but it's Mompreneur Mastery to get them that discount.
Perfect. And that sounds amazing. And I love that you mentioned it's about like carving out your own space, because while templates are super helpful, I find that when I use them, and maybe it's just me and like how my brain works, but I lose like so much of my own voice and stuff when I use other people's templates. So yeah.
And in the course I kind of teach them how I use AI as a tool. So it is not something that we are ignoring or pretending. Like, I go through my process. These are the prompts that I use. This is the feedback that I get, and then how I edit it or tweak it. And everybody's gonna, do that a little bit differently based on your personality and how you work. But that's the feedback on that has been very positive, because I think a lot of people are curious, like, how do I use this to streamline my workflows and make things easier while also still sounding like myself? And so as I learn more, I update the course. But for now, that's kind of, part of how we're creating that content together.
That's super helpful, because AI is like amazing, especially for like mom business owners who are doing all the things all the time. Like, you want to be able to outsource some, but still keep it authentic and keep it to you. So your content and your copy still does what it needs to with connecting with your audience. For sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm going to put the links for both of those things in the show notes. And then can you tell everyone where they can follow you on Instagram?
Yeah, I am at A Big Brave Life. So easy to find me. I try to show up there most days. You'll see all of it. You'll see my business. You'll see my crazy kids, all the things. But that's my little corner of the internet. A Big Brave Life.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. I love getting to talk to you about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Mompreneur Mastery, simple Instagram strategy for busy moms. If you were listening to this episode and found yourself nodding along, I would love it if you would find me on Instagram and send me a message telling me your biggest takeaway. My handle is @socially.yours.strategist. And don't forget to grab your free 1 month of Conversation Starters content calendar so that you know exactly what to post to get more comments without spending hours brainstorming Instagram post ideas. You can get it at sociallyyours.biz/content calendar, or head to the link in the show notes. Hey Mompreneur, I know that selling your offers on Instagram is really hard. First, you gotta know how to word your content to make sure that it clearly shows how amazeballs your offer is. And then you also have to know how to craft the content to make sure it appeases the algorithm gods so it actually gets seen by the people most likely to buy it. My goal is to help moms help their families through their online businesses. That is why I made Carousels That Sell. Carousels That Sell is a collection of 7 Instagram carousels and captions that have made me over $20,000. So I turned them into plug-and-play templates so that you can get the same results. Carousels That Sell is super easy to use, so you can easily create and schedule the content, and will help sell your offers for you while you're off playing with your kids. Grab the templates that have made me over $20K for only $27 at sociallyyours.biz/carousels-that-sell, so you can grow your business bank account faster than your kid outgrows their clothes.